Welcome to the PrepZone show presented by Bevill State. I'm Johnathan Bentley, joined by my co-host, Zach McCullar. Zach, it's almost over. Football season, it's in its waning days at this point.
It is. It pretty much is over if you count games that really mean anything. We've got the playoffs, which is 3 games, counting the championship. So that's it, pretty much.
Yeah, and some meaningless bowl games, and some good bowl games.
Yeah, there are going to be some pretty good ones.
I like the matchups this year, actually.
Oh, yes, there are some really
and the
good
bigger
ones.
games.
Even
I'm not
some
talking about the UA Birmingham Bowl.
That's not a good matchup.
No. Aren't they supposed to have an SEC team?
I think they ran out of options.
I thought there was I thought the only SEC teams not in a bowl were Auburn, A&M, and Vanderbilt. But apparently, they must be number 12 in the pecking order.
It must be.
Because we're stuck with East Carolina against somebody. Was it Coastal Carolina?
It might have been.
Yes, see, I've already forgotten.
One
All
of
right,
those
so let's jump right into the college rankings. The playoffs are set, as you mentioned. Georgia, Michigan, TCU, Ohio State. Did the committee get it right?
It depends on how you look at it, really. I mean, the 4 best teams. I think Alabama deserved to be in the 4 best teams, but they really didn't have much of an argument except, well, we only lost on the last play of the game to a couple of top 10 teams. I mean, Ohio State's only loss was to Michigan. Granted, it was 22, 23 points at home. So I don't think Alabama really deserved it if you go by just body of work completely, your resume. But I do think the Crimson Tide were one of the best 4 teams.
Yeah, I think they would have their way with TCU. But of course, you could do that every year. You know, somebody that's left out. I think South Carolina do well.
Oh,
They'd
yes.
probably beat TCU. But, I mean, TCU loses their last game. It was overtime.
Last
they
play
can't
of the
get
game.
into from the 1-yard line against Kansas State, but here they are. They'll be playing it would be Michigan?
It would be, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking for Michigan there.
Why
did Alabama not jump TCU or Ohio State?
Ohio State, just because Alabama's whole argument, like I said, lost on the last play of the game to 2 top 10 teams. TCU's only lost last play of the game to a top 10 team. TCU, their best win is Kansas State, who, I guess...
They beat them 10 points first time.
They beat them 10 points. I couldn't remember the score there, but it was 38-28. Then you lose. So they beat everyone on their schedule, technically. And so I think TCU deserved it. Now, Ohio State, that is what I was thinking about because I figured TCU was going to make the playoffs no matter what. Ohio State and Alabama, that was what I thought would be the main battle. And I think the 2-loss barrier pretty much did it.
Yeah, that did it. I mean, we've had one 2-loss champion, and no 2-loss team has made the playoff. So, and it was LSU that one year that was crazy. But
it's funny that the BCS gets 2 teams in the playoff and the college football playoff gets 4. And yet, the two-loss team is only going to make the BCS.
That was a BCS. Yeah, that's crazy.
And again, the BCS was just weird.
It was not fair a lot of times. But, I mean, this year, it would have been great for the BCS. We have 2 clearly undefeated teams, and they could have played each other. We don't even need these other 2. So, does anybody have a chance to beat Georgia? They looked pretty good against LSU last week.
Absolutely no chance of anybody beat Georgia. I mean, Georgia, I would say right now, obvious favorites in every game. I think... they're only a 6.5-point favorite to Ohio State, even with Ohio State's best player not playing. Jackson Smith and Jigba, he's been hurt all year. He was the star of last year's Rose Bowl. He's a great wide receiver. And whoever Georgia gets, Michigan or TCU, they're going to blow them out. I mean, I'm sure some of you saw that clip from last week's SEC championship game where one of Georgia's defensive linemen picked up the LSU quarterback with one arm.
I never seen anything like it.
I had never seen that either. I mean, when you can do that and when you've got the best tight end in the country that could run over any human being that's not over 7 foot tall, I would say. Maybe some that are. I mean, it's just going to be hard to beat Georgia. But the thing is, next year, Georgia, they've won national championship 2 years in a row. At least that's what I think is going to happen. Next year, how do they follow that up?
Yeah. I mean, this was supposed to be a down year.
It was because they lost half their defense.
They're not as good, but they're still the best team in the country.
By far.
And I've never seen a guy pick up. Daniels got picked up like it was a toy bowl player.
He did.
He just picked him up. But they had everything going their way. The first touchdown was off the block punt where everybody's standing around. The guy took it. Got bounced off a LSU player's helmet, and they called it. I mean, it was everything went their way.
Then you go for 2 to make 50 points, 50 to 23.
They don't need any. I don't know why they did that. Completely unnecessary. But they are still the best team. All right, so we'll jump into our high school material since the season's been over for several weeks now.
It
Now, it ended in the championship game last week. But
Technically, but for us.
yeah, we had nobody get that far, and I really thought we would.
Yeah. It ended in a rough manner. So to
Yeah,
speak.
I really thought LSU, Lynn or Meek would make it, and they were supposed to play each other.
They were.
It's going to be a huge game, and neither of them
And
even
it
got that
fell
far.
apart.
Neither got that far, which is
At least we got to
surprising.
see Lynn Addison in the playoffs.
Yes, and you
That's
were there.
what I was looking forward
It's a
to.
good game.
Oh, that was great. The game itself wasn't great, but the atmosphere was amazing.
Yes. The best atmosphere I saw was a Meek game this year. Meek, Addison.
Really?
When Addison came to their place.
Addison-
It's different over there in Winston County. They really, really care.
I feel bad for Addison because it feels like when they show up, every fan in the county shows up to root
Yes.
against them.
Yes, exactly. That shows when you're a good team.
Yeah,
you know, people want to beat you.
They
like the
are.
Yankees or Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, they're historically the best team we've got over
Yes,
here.
no doubt. They went 9. They had a good year, a good bounce back year. So we're going to go over our Player of the Year finalists, and you want to touch on this first one, Zach?
All right. Well, we've made a big deal about this player this year, and that's because he is a big deal. Probably one of the best running backs we've had in the area for some time. Meek's junior running back, Cam Deaver. And when I say junior, yeah, he's still got another year to play next year. So what he
Hard to
does
believe.
next year, I mean, that's going to be.
It's going to be hard to top this.
It is, though, because everybody's going to want to defend against him. Cam Deaver, his stats, 2,472 total yards, 36 touchdowns. Rushing, 2,435 touchdowns. Passing, 5 of 6, 71 yards and a touchdown. Guess he
Just
had a
open.
yard receiving in there somewhere.
3 yards.
3
Yep.
yards, okay. Not bad.
So even had a catch.
He did,
But
yeah.
9.7 yards a carry is
That is a first down every 2 runs.
that's unbelievable. That's a lot of yards. And we kind of talked about this before the show, but they had some easy teams on the schedule.
Where he got his 3 runs, his 3 touchdowns.
He would carry the ball
170
3 or 4
yards.
times. I mean, if he got 15 carries in those games,
Oh,
he'd do
man.
400 yards. He'd have 3,000 yards probably. So
The schedule kind of did him in.
yeah, it actually didn't help. Playing those teams like Cherokee did not help his stats. Because, I mean, you can't, unless you were just a mean coach, just keep running them. Because he was going the distance basically every time.
I mean, with Meek, it's you hear about throwing the ball late that runs up the score. Not at Meek. That's running the ball late. It's runs up
Yes.
the score.
Several games like that. All right, so our second guy is Dora. Most of these are juniors.
I mean,
Out of our top 4 here, 3 of them.
that shows next year's going to be a good year.
Yeah, how do these guys top this? Keyshawn Pryor, the Dora quarterback. And, I mean, halfway through the year, you look at a schedule and you say teams do well after the off week. They make adjustments.
They do.
And I don't think anybody did it like Dora. The
No.
adjustments were, it's like a different team.
It was.
So he had 3,178 total yards and 34 total touchdowns. Rushed for 1234 with 15. Threw for another 1887. So he's coming up on 2,000 yards.
He is, yeah.
18 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Also had a 57-yard touchdown catch. I mean, the guy did everything. And, yeah, how do you top this?
I don't know.
Now, next year, see, they won't have to go through the off week. They'll be in this system from the start.
Exactly. Which means teams will be a little more prepared for it, which, I mean, you never know how that works out. But,
Still got to play Aniana and Winfield next year to start, so that is not going to be easy.
I mean, the way Winfield ended their season this year, honestly, that gives Dora a little hope heading into that matchup.
It was
because
your typical Winfield season.
It was. Undefeated,
unbeatable.
1 loss, yeah.
Yeah, and then
then
you get
losing
beat
the playoffs.
immediately. Okay.
Huh.
So who's our next candidate, Zach?
Cal Tittle, the Lynn Jr. quarterback, our third and final junior on the list. He had 3,217 yards overall for 39 touchdowns. Passing, he had 141 completions out of 236 attempts for 60%. 2,076 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Being a 2,000-yard passer in 1A is pretty unusual.
You don't
I would
see
say.
that.
You don't, because
Correct.
everybody in 1A runs except Lynn.
That is true.
And speaking of running, Cal Tittle did a lot of that. 165 attempts, 1,141 yards, 13 touchdowns. That's a shade under 7 yards a carry.
Yeah, and the bad thing for him is he suffered a sprained ankle, and I think it was 3 games late in the year where he didn't even run. So I mean that
And
really,
you still have that stat line.
yeah, he would have probably had closer to maybe 1,500 rushing yards had that not happened because it wasn't a great competition. But, 39 touchdowns is the most total out of this group.
It is.
So, but let's go to number 4 here, which is Gavin Brown. I feel like we had to include him.
Yes, because of the year he's had.
He had a huge start. I think he had 1,000 yards like in 4 games. Just killing it. And this is the 4A level. It's a lot harder. Senior running back, 1,944 yards, 32 touchdowns, and rushed for 1,793 for 31 touchdowns, which is 7.2 yards per carry. It's
not
pretty good.
Terrible.
Yeah, that's pretty good. He had 11 catches for 144 and even threw a touchdown pass.
Hey,
so
everybody gets a touchdown in every department on this sheet, it looks like.
yes, and he also would return kicks, but another great season. He's the only senior on this. He had a big year last year, but 2 years in a row he's done it. Just a great season at a higher level of competition. Their schedule's not easy. This reminds me a lot of Dora's schedule. It's not. They're in the same region.
It's a pretty tough schedule.
4A is no cupcake.
No, it's not.
So that's our 4 guys. We'll go probably next week, decide who is the best out of these.
It's going to be a
I
hard.
really don't know. Yeah,
It's going to be a hard choice to make.
Not agreed on this.
No.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
It is, yeah.
We had a lot of good players this year. But even outside of this, it seemed like Winston County just had great seasons. They had
yes.
Declan Morgan over there for Winston County, and Addison had a couple guys. The county overall, Dora did a lot. Cordova had some, and their running back was hurt. Hedrick had a great season. Cody, who's not on the list.
Who is right now piling up points in basketball.
Yes. Yeah, good two-sport athlete there. Okay, so now we'll jump into the coaches. Also some good coaches. Some of the same teams mentioned here, really, actually.
Pretty much every team mentioned here.
Yeah, do you want to talk about the first one?
All right, the first coach is Houston Powell at Meek. Mm-hmm. He is the 1A Coach of the Year from the AFCA, which is the Alabama Football Coaches Association. Went 11-1, 10-0 regular season, the first time Meek has done that. Set a school record for wins in a season and points in a season. They won their first region title since 1990, and their season ended prematurely in the second round when they were upset by Pickens County. Not a bad year.
No, and is it? Pickens County is so used to these situations.
Oh, yes.
It was just a tough draw. You're up. Do we need to go over this again?
No, we don't.
You're up like 4 minutes ago by 2 touchdowns. But, yeah, it was kind of a crazy finish there. But a great season. He was our Coach of the Year last year. Goes from 8-4 to 11-1.
Now what's he going to do?
Yeah, what's he going to do next year?
Next year, as long as they get past Pickens County or in the third round or something, I think that's an improvement.
Yeah, they'll have a lot of these guys back.
Yeah, especially Cam Deaver.
Yep, I think next year is going to be a big year for them. Now we go to a guy that we've known for years around here, Mark Hastings at Lynn. He led all those Oakman teams to the playoffs. He's back in the area last year. They went 2-8. Before the season started, I said 5-5 would be pretty good for them. Maybe make the playoffs.
I said more like in between 4 and 6, 6 and 4.
Because that schedule was very hard for 1A.
It was.
They had an Alabama Christian, a really good 3A team as their non-region game, which was their only regular season loss. So they go from 2-8 to 11-2. He's already got them back to a contender. They won the region, which included Pickens County and Marion, which was good. Yeah. Marion ended up playing Pickens in the playoffs. And they set a record for points of the season, like Meek.
High-scoring teams up in
Yes, and they lost to Coosa Christian in a game where Coosa, everything went their way. It was on the road. It was just a mess. They had a lot of penalties and turnovers and ended up losing there, but it was still a great season. But that's our number 2 guy, and we have one more, and Zach knows this guy pretty well.
Oh, yes. It's not much of a shock that he's on this list, considering that what he's done. He took Carbon Hill from 0-10 every year to 4-6, 3-7, which in Carbon Hill is pretty good. Chavis Williams, who's now at his alma mater, Dora, they overcame a slow start. They finished 8-4. They won the region title, which you said was going to happen.
Yes,
and I told you there was no way.
Northside's what you said.
Yes, Northside. I didn't think Corner would be the main problem in that region at all.
Me neither.
But 6-game winning streak after their bye week, which you said, that is usually when teams improve, and Dora did that. Team averaged 39.2 points per game after that bye week. That's a
unbelievable.
lot of points. And they had 24.2 before, so you can see the improvement there. And so they lost to Randolph in the second round. Randolph, I think, made
Randolph
the
was
state
better
championship.
than I thought. That was a really. I always give no credit to Huntsville teams. I got to quit doing that because they came here and just they won they scored a lot of. I think it was 47-37 or something like
It was
that.
a high-scoring game.
Yeah, they gave up a lot of points. They didn't have a great game, but it was still a great season. And Chavis, he deserves to be on this list. And now I think all these teams, a lot of these guys are back next year for every one of them. Meek, Lynn, and Dora.
I'm glad we haven't had as many coaching changes in the past couple of years as 3-4 years ago. It seemed like every year we were getting new coaches in.
Especially at Cordova.
Oh, yeah. And now we've got the same coaches back year in, year out, and you see what they're doing. They're building off of previous seasons, and they're building their way up into long playoff runs and eventually title contenders.
That's a good point because you do not make a good team by changing coaches. Look at Cordova's struggles when they kept changing them every year.
I mean, they had 3 coaches in 3 years, and then
it was a
finally settled on Shane Smothers, and 5-5, not making the playoffs. Their season was much better than that.
Best 5-5 team in the
In
state.
the state, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, they had, everything went against them, seemed like this year. Great season, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was fun for them. All right, so there was another guy I want to mention real fast. Corner coach had a great season, too. No one thought they'd do anything.
No.
Now, they finished 4th, but they still had a great record, and John Cooper did a great job.
8-3.
Yeah, they go from, I think they won 2 games last year.
Yeah, I picked them to go 5-5.
That would have been a good season.
It would have been.
They really overshot everything. Surprised everybody. In a tough region, too. All right, so we'll leave our high school things behind for next week and jump to Zach's picks.
All right, I've decided to spare you from going through all 41 bowl games this week. I'm only going to stick with the New Year's Six, which includes the 2 playoff semifinals. So the first game I'm going to go through is a battle of teams whose playoff hopes were ended by South Carolina in the Orange Bowl, Tennessee and Clemson. Tennessee 6th, Clemson 7th, but the Tigers are 7-point favorites. With their backup quarterback, who started most of the year, DJ Uungalale, in the transfer portal after getting benched against North Carolina last week. I just see Tennessee focused and prepared and Clemson falling apart.
Now, who is the new Clemson quarterback?
His name is Cade Klubnik. He is a former top recruit. Everybody thought he was going to start this season. He didn't do that. They benched Uungalale several times this season, I think, and they never stuck with it. So they finally got their starting quarterback. So, I mean, this is his first game actually starting, I think.
Wow. So we got 2 new starters here?
We do.
Milton had 1 game under his belt at least.
Milton's also transfer.
And he had played a lot before.
Oh, yeah, he played a whole lot. I think
he is a veteran backup. So, yeah, they're lucky to have him over there. That's a tough one. What did you say the line was? Clemson?
7. Clemson
seems like
7.
a lot.
I got the Volunteers winning that.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Now, I mean, these picks could change based on if people opt out of a bowl game or something like that because we don't know who's going to be playing, especially in this next game, Alabama, Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, does this game really matter to Alabama?
No. And how many Kansas State fans are going to be at this thing?
Oh, my goodness.
If all of them turn out, they'll fill up
half
a small section. It's just not when I saw that matchup, it's just kind of like, well, really? But it's going to be hard to get up for this game for Alabama.
It is because Nick Saban did his best to get Alabama in the playoffs. He went on every TV station he could find, every platform, made his case. Didn't work out. Now he's got to get his team to buy in. Of course, the main question here is, does Bryce Young play?
I say no.
So do I.
What was the quarterback hurt last year for Ole Miss?
That was Matt Corral.
Matt Corral, you saw what happened. He's hurt badly. So, yeah, I wouldn't do it.
I heard his draft stock, too. I think he went from a borderline first, second round pick to 4th round.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
No, I don't think
meaningless. It doesn't mean that much.
It's
a Sugar Bowl.
It's a Sugar Bowl.
Not that big a deal this year.
It's not. Kansas State wants to win. Kansas State would love to beat Alabama.
Now, Vanderbilt's in the Sugar Bowl. Yes, it's a big deal.
That is a massive deal.
But Alabama, no.
No. But I still think Alabama's going to win just because they're Alabama and they'll find a way, which really hasn't happened a whole lot this season.
Yeah. We know they're better.
They are much better.
It's about if they want to play. I think if Young does leave, I think that might help them.
I don't think it would exactly help But
Losing the best player on the
because
team.
your leader says, no, I'm just going to go prepare for the draft. Don't want to hurt
Maybe
my
it would
shoulder
unite
more.
them a little bit, and Milroe or somebody else would go off. I don't know.
Milroe, he's just not your typical Saban championship quarterback. Saban wants a quarterback that drops back and instead of thinking, where do I run, thinks, where do I throw? Because when Milroe drops back 2 steps, all right, where do I run? I mean,
He is very
you can't
fast.
win championships and do that.
No.
Looking at the teams in the playoffs, Stetson Bennett, pocket passer. Max Duggan's built like a pocket passer, though, as we saw against Kansas
can run a little
State.
bit.
He can run, and he's forced to run a whole lot. And who are other quarterbacks?
Stroud.
C.J. Stroud, he's kind of a runner.
Yeah, he can do that.
He's a good runner, and
But he can also throw.
that's right. And Ohio State, like I said, Stroud. We have Duggan, and who's number 2? That is Michigan's McCarthy, J.J. McCarthy. He's young, he's fast. He's one of the only playoff quarterbacks that is not. He is the only quarterback will be in the playoff that's not also going to be trying to win a Heisman Trophy.
Wow.
Because
That's a good point.
all the
Yeah.
other 3 are in the finalists for that. So, I mean, you don't win a championship with a running quarterback.
No. You got to do both.
You have
At
to.
least to a small degree.
So you think Alabama wins?
I do take Alabama, yes.
Okay. Next game, this is a sneakily interesting matchup in the Cotton Bowl. USC, who played like a mediocre high school team in the Pac-12 championship game against Utah. They have Tulane, who is the annual group of 5 team that gets to take a shot at a big boy. USC's a 2-point favorite here.
Wow.
And USC, I think, is much better.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
banking on the
clearly.
fact that they are not prepared. They don't want to play this. They think they should be in the playoffs. They don't care. I got Tulane.
Wow. I mean, and this is kind of like we mentioned for Vanderbilt. It's a huge game for Tulane.
Oh, yes, because
And-
they haven't been in a major bowl game since 1939.
Well, it's been a while.
Yeah, I mean, you might have been only 2 years old at that time.
Yeah, had a full head of hair back then. But I will still take. I'm going to chalk up shoulder injury to Caleb Williams is why they lost. I mean, they were still going to lose.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
still going to lose to Utah. But I don't know. I'm just going to pick USC.
Okay.
Just off talent. Maybe they show up.
They are more talented. They are much more talented
But
than
that
Tulane.
sometimes, a lot of times, that doesn't matter in
Exactly.
bowl.
I mean, bowl games are so hard to pick because you don't know who cares and who don't.
Yeah.
All right, next game is the last game I'm going to pick that's not a playoff. It's the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. Penn State, who is contractually obligated to go because they're the highest-ranked Big Ten team not in the playoffs. They're facing Pac-12 champion Utah. Utah's a 2.5-point favorite. I think both of these teams are going to be motivated in this, which is something you don't see in bowl games.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird that the number 3 team makes the Rose Bowl third in their conference. Usually goes a lot of times it goes to the conference champ.
It does.
So, boy, that's a good matchup.
It
though.
is.
And I like the way Utah plays. God, I mean, I still don't know how they lost to Florida in that opener. That really hurt them.
It
I mean, you
did.
look back, it really hurt them.
I mean, right now they are probably, if they don't lose that, fourth. I mean, not
Yeah,
fourth,
they're up
fifth.
there.
They were fighting
They're-
for a playoff spot too. If they
they'd be
don't
up there
lose
with
that.
Tennessee. Yeah,
They would be.
So, but I will pick Utah. I like the way they're playing lately.
So do I. Not because Penn State's not going to be
No, they're
motivated.
actually good,
Or
too.
not because they're a bad team. This is going to be a really good matchup, I think. So now I'm going to jump into the playoffs. The first semifinal, TCU and Michigan, the number 3 team and the number 2 team. Michigan's a 7.5-point favorite in the Fiesta Bowl.
Wow, that seems like a lot, but
It is.
the way they play doesn't really, except for Ohio State, that game was close going into the
It
fourth.
was.
Yeah, but Michigan doesn't typically blow out teams. I think it'll be closer than that.
They're just not your playoff team. They pretty much had a schedule with 2 tough teams on it. Penn State beat them. Ohio State beat them.
Almost lose to Illinois. Yeah,
They did, and I mean,
at home. So, but I'll pick them to win, but it's not going to be by much.
I'm looking at TCU, and they're probably going to be mad because they lost on the last play of the game in the conference championship game. They're 12-1. They're really a good team.
Yeah.
That
This is
Max
the best-
Duggan is a great quarterback. Would he
Without
be
him, they'd be 8 and 4.
Without
Maybe
him-
worse.
Oh yes.
Be like Baylor, basically.
He is, I think, the most valuable player of the year. So he's not going to win a Heisman Trophy if this is the past 10 years.
Right, no way.
But this year, he's got a good chance at winning that trophy.
If they actually did it right, he probably would win it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I've got the Horned Frogs, even though they're technically lizards, to win this.
Win? Wow. You haven't them in the championship game?
I do. Which
that'd be
would
something.
which they would be playing the winner of this, Ohio State, Georgia, in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, the Bulldogs' backyard. Georgia only a 6.5-point favorite.
Wow. Now, early in the season, it seemed like Ohio State, I was like, this team can challenge. This team has a chance.
That's what I thought because they
And it's
played
kind
really
of
well. And
down the stretch, did not go well.
You saw how the committee loved them because no matter what they did, they always stayed second until they lost. And then they
moved back.
dropped fourth.
2 spots. It's crazy. But, yeah, I see Georgia. I mean, if they play their regular game, they should win this by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. And they should do that in the national championship game, whether they play Michigan or TCU.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, they're going to win it all.
Yeah, we both think Georgia's going to be back-to-back national championships. And that caps Zach's picks off.
Wow. So that's it for the year for Zach's picks.
It looks like it.
End. So, okay. Well, thanks for that. And let's thank Jake for producing and Bevill State for sponsoring. This has been the Prep Zone Show, and we'll see you next week.